Hi, I'm Hank Levin. I've been working with people for 45 years, helping them to deal with stress. I've trained practitioners. I've written several books on techniques for biofeedback-guided personal consultations and designed specialized equipment for these techniques. I've become very good at helping people deal with stress. Some people say I'm an expert. So I've decided to do this small series of videos called The Story of Stress, Why Your Life Isn't Working, and What You Can Do About It. Let me tell you something about myself. As a kid, I was stress personified. I didn't understand it, but I sure experienced it. Unhappy, serious. I felt I could never do anything right. Sad most of the time, not much self-esteem, and it got worse as I got older. But in some ways I was very lucky. My parents were middle class, we weren't impoverished, and I was smart enough to get good grades without studying. I could read easily and remember what I read. I don't remember a time when I couldn't read, but I was filled with sadness, resentment, guilt, and fear. I was introverted and shy. I learned to protect myself by being articulate and sarcastic. I struggled through college without studying, in a state of chronic anxiety, until an affair of the heart pushed me over the edge. Suddenly, I OD'd on my own adrenaline. Hands shaking, impossible to focus. The psych counselors called it acute anxiety syndrome. The counseling I got was inept. Their anti-anxiety drugs just made me sleepy and dopey. I had to drop out for a couple of weeks to recover. Eventually, I went off to school far from home and realized how therapeutic it was to get away from my parents and to stay out of relationships where I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I ended up in New York City making musical instruments, still very vulnerable, but functioning. The turnaround in my life happened when I had a series of telepathic experiences with a friend. This made me realize that, despite all my education, I didn't know anything accurate or useful about the mind. I guess that opened me up to looking, because shortly after that, I met an amazing couple in New York who taught me about mental pictures, how they're created, and how they affect feelings, behavior, and ability to focus, and some ways of discharging the negative energy from the bad ones. For the following 15 years, I studied with a number of people in the field of clearing the mind, later making my own contributions to the field, giving workshops, writing books, and editing a magazine on the subject. So, I have some things to share with you about stress that I'm sure will help you too. So, what is stress? If we're going to get deeply into the subject, we better have some agreement on what the word means, right? There are so many useless and contradictory definitions of stress that it boggles the mind. If you want to accumulate a bunch of facts about the subject, check out stress in wikipedia.com. Stress can refer to things that cause disruption or to the individual's response to those things. Biology defines stress in terms of neuroanatomy and effects of the stressor on central nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, and endocrine system. This approach, which is highly regarded in our culture, nearly always results to chemical remedies. Now, if you've gone that route and it seems to be working for you, maybe you should stop watching this right now. Some definitions of stress infer that it's not necessarily something bad. Good stress can be the stress of exhilarating, creative, successful work, or good exercise like climbing a mountain. Not to get into semantic arguments, but that is not what I mean by stress. I have a definition of stress that I'd like to share with you, simply because it leads to a workable understanding of the subject, meaning that with this definition and understanding, you can actually fix the problem. Stress is the physiological perception of the presence of certain kinds of thought processes occurring, namely upsets, quandaries, guilt, and fear. That's it, folks. It's that simple. Okay, now, before we get into this, we have to understand some things about thought itself. If you believe the currently accepted theory that thought is the result of electrochemical reactions or processes inside the brain, you will never be able to do anything about it. Well, you could go back to drinking. I want to give you an example of a thought. I want you to imagine a cat sitting on a table in front of you. Okay? If you don't have a table in front of you, have it sitting on the floor. What color is that cat? That's an example of a thought. That kind of a thought is a graphic thought. Your cat might have been a memory of a cat, or it might have been something that you invented right on the moment. But that is a kind of a thought. Now, there are other kinds of thoughts too. There are energy thoughts. Did you ever look at somebody of the opposite sex from behind, admiring them, and they turn around and look right at you? And they pick this up from you. Okay, what is that energy that they're picking up? In this case, it's a sexual energy. There are other kinds of energy as well. But those energy flows are thoughts also. Thought is the interface between the spirit and the physical universe. As spirits, we routinely create and erase thoughts. It's very hard to create something from nothing in the physical universe, and really hard to make it go poof. But we do this with thoughts all the time. Now, if you like, you can call this entire system of thinking your mind. We use thoughts all the time for communicating, calculating taxes, designing airplanes, kitchens, and businesses. We use them to run our bodies. Here's an example. Raise your right hand. Okay, good. Now, how did you do that? Well, the way you did that is you sent a thought, an energy flow, if you like, to a certain part of your body that's very responsive to it. You learned how to do this when you were a baby. It may have taken you some time, but that's an example of how your thoughts work your body. Okay? Thoughts, thinking, and the mind are very much like software in computers. Software is the interface between you, the operator, and the computer's hardware. Thought is the interface between you and your body. If you really think you are the body, this might not make much sense to you. But just as you can have defective software screwing up your computer's operating system and making it dysfunctional, you can also have defective thoughts or defective thinking screwing up your mind and your body and making them dysfunctional. You may be amazed to realize there are really only 4 kinds of thought processes that can cause that kind of dysfunction. We'll learn more about those septic thought processes and what we can do about them in the upcoming video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.